Abode Community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, founder and CEO of Dr. Anita Enterprises Incorporated. As a C-suite trusted advisor and board director, I help other members of the C-suite reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. As we celebrate Black History Month, the airing of this podcast marks my 5th anniversary as the founder and CEO of Dr. Anita Enterprises Incorporated. All month long, I'm hosting real conversations from the C-suite with clients I've asked to share their reflections of their belonging journey with me as their consultant. Today, I'm excited to have the C-suite members from Abode Communities with me. Ms. Holly Benson, President and CEO, Mr. Rick Saperstein, Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Jerry Gonzales, Chief People and Administrative Officer. Welcome to you all, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. It's great to be here.
It's good to see you again, Dr. Anita.
You too, Jerry. We need to catch up and just talk about life in general, but I'm glad that you're with us today. Now, there have been some exciting changes at Abode Communities over the last 12 months. And for those who may not be familiar with this organization, I want to give the community just a couple of insights. First, Abode Communities was established in 1968 and has the distinction of being the longest established affordable housing provider in Southern California. That is a big deal. Congratulations. Second, the C-suite, which is here with us today, along with the board of directors and the housing board of directors, they are by far the most diverse leadership team I have ever seen. So I want to give a shout out for that. Let's start this real conversation from the C-suite with some celebrations. Holly, last year, you became the president and CEO of Abode Communities. Tell us about your journey.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. Well, let me just first say what a complete honor it is to be your guest today. I think we all got a little giddy when you put the invitation out there. And I also just cannot let slide congratulations to you on celebrating your 5th anniversary. And that's just such an exciting accomplishment. So we're happy to celebrate it with you. So as you mentioned, I became president and CEO of Abode Communities last year. However, I have been with the organization for 16 years and in the affordable housing world for close to 3 decades now. And, it's been an amazing journey. And I'd say every step of the way, it's been driven by my heart and my passion to do work that really matters to me. And I started in this world and in this industry as a resident services coordinator, and I've worn many hats along the way, with the most recent, and when I met you first, as the Chief Operating Officer of Abode Communities. So, I'm really thrilled and honored to be in this position to think about all the ways in which we can advance our mission.
You have been one of the most thoughtful leaders that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, because everything about your work, you really look at it from the values of the organization and the mission that dates all the way back to its founding. So I want to commend you for that. A lot of CEOs talk the talk and don't necessarily walk the walk. And I have seen firsthand that you absolutely do that. So thank you for your leadership, Holly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, Jerry, it was recently announced that you were promoted to Chief People and Administrative Officer. Fill us in on that.
10 days into the job, and I have some very fancy and big shoes to fill, with Holly previously holding part of the portfolio. And I'm excited to be able to continue this kind of really important work. One thing that I'll say, and that I shared with Holly in my last stages of interviewing for this job, was to talk a little bit about my personal values. And one of my core values is the values of acts of service and being a servant leader. And what better way to serve than be able to serve at the top of an organization and really be the person that supports other people in their own success, especially in an organization like this that's close to my heart, where, as you know, I grew up poor, an immigrant to the United States, and I'm a person of color. So to be able to support many marginalized communities to make sure that they have affordable housing, that's a blessing every day that I'm able to do that. And I get to do it with these 2 wonderful people who teach me so much about myself every day also, and make sure that I stay grounded and humble, but also focused on what needs to be done in order to do work for this community that we serve.
And I can say firsthand, I have observed you operating as a servant leader, as a colleague with you for the NHRA LA's chapter of the DE&I Council. It has just been a pleasure to walk alongside you and grow with you. I've often said this month that just because we happen to be thought leaders or facilitators in this space doesn't mean that we have shut ourselves off to learning. You and I are always learning something. And one of the first things that I noticed about you was this dude knows his stuff inside and out, backwards and forwards, up and down. And so I applaud you for that and all of the work that you're doing at Abode. Congratulations.
Thank you. You're too kind.
I'm very sincere. Now, Rick, I want to celebrate the fact that you provide continuity as Holly and Jerry get comfortable in your new roles. How's that been for you?
First, Dr. Anita, thank you for having me on your podcast. It's an honor.
Of course.
So both of my colleagues were extremely deserving of their promotions. So I've been so excited for them. And Holly and I, we were C-suite colleagues for several years prior to her promotion from COO to CEO. But the responsibilities and depth of knowledge required of a CEO are much broader than a COO. So I've been excited and interested to help along the way by imparting some of my experience and knowledge. Also, though, I want to say that being able to work with Jerry in his prior role and looking forward to working with Jerry in his new role, and in the few months that I've worked with Holly in her CEO role, it has been very invigorating and energizing to get these new perspectives. I've been at Abode Communities for 15 years. And so to have this dramatic leadership change, it's just really been eye-opening to get these new perspectives. And so I'm really looking forward to this next upcoming period of time of working with these two fantastic C-suite colleagues of mine.
They are pretty amazing. And so are you. I think too often people don't properly value the importance of continuity for people who may have been in the organization but are stepping into new roles. And so you just bring something that I'm sure the entire organization values and appreciates. So thank you for your leadership role in that. You're so humble. You're all so humble and so amazing. And there's nothing like working with leaders who are on the ball but are still managing to be humble. That's the whole point of role modeling inclusive and human affirming behavior leadership. So thank you all for that. I am very much excited to celebrate you all as individuals and our partnership together. Jerry, how did you come to invite me to be your consultant and join the belonging journey that has clearly been ongoing at Abode Communities since 1968?
Well, Dr. Anita, in order to explain that, I think we have to talk a little bit about the history of Abode Communities. Abode Communities started off in 1968 as a Los Angeles Community Design Center. And it was really the child of the civil rights movement here in Los Angeles to really make sure that as affordable housing was being built, we were building places where people lived with dignity, that it wasn't just the traditional housing projects that you saw springing up during that time. And those values still remain today, nearly 55 years later, as we added our divisions of real estate development, property management, and then service-enhanced resident services to really make sure that people are really able to thrive in the communities that we build. And so one of the nexus moments that we had, obviously, was the murder of George Floyd. And I was not in the organization yet at that moment. I started interviewing for my prior job as the VP of Talent Culture shortly thereafter. And what I found in that moment when talking to Rick, Holly, and then our CEO at that time, Robin Hughes, was that this was not about platitudes or just putting out some nice, flashy marketing, but it was really a way for us to center that history about being in the civil rights movement into today's context and making sure that as we built our strategy, as we grew as an organization, and now we're a statewide provider of affordable housing, that ethos of making sure that people lived with integrity and that we were looking out for those most marginalized people stayed with us throughout. And so when we thought about that, that felt for me like a natural tie to belonging and not all the other parts about diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yeah.
And it made sense that when we talked about belonging, which is sometimes a foreign concept, that the first people to model that really was going to be our senior management team.
I think that belonging seems to be catching on finally, but it's not necessarily a new concept. Again, people are just now catching on. I was going through some documents the other day looking for something for a program that I'm putting together for a client, and I came across an article that was dated 2006. And in the article, the gentleman was talking about college admission process and finding a place at a university where he felt like he belonged. And now we're seeing that resurgence again, especially on university campuses, that belonging is a big deal. So give us some insight into the Ready work that you've been guiding and how belonging plays into that.
Well, I don't know if necessarily I can call myself as the guide or the leader of that work. I think that this organization is primed for our racial equity work, and that it takes somebody to really curate ideas and make sure that they're brought to the forefront. And so I want to make sure that we give proper credit to Holly and Rick, who are able to look at different areas about our strategy. Some things that we're thinking about is the affordable housing industry and real estate in general is not a field where we see many people of color. And lots of people don't know that this is a viable option in terms of jobs and career opportunities. And so one of the things that Abode Communities is doing is really starting to think about how do we create our own workforce development programs in our pipelines so we can really start diversifying the industry, starting with our organization first. And we've done some pilots, and we're really starting to think about how to bring those to scale. So that's really important. The other place that I think Rick will really talk about is, Abode Communities spends a lot of money in lots of different places in the construction, design, and provision of services for housing. And that money should be spent on communities where we can reinvest in the same communities, making sure that small minority-owned and women-owned businesses can also flourish. And that's another area where our Ready work is starting to really be focused on in the next year. Holly has this beautiful example that anytime we have lunch, we should be supporting a small minority-owned business, because even those little dollars mean something at the end of the day. And part of that racial equity journey and that belonging journey is reflecting internally on us as as leaders, and how it shows up in our management style, what it looks like in terms of who we promote, who we coach and mentor, who the succession plan is. And I think that makes our Ready plan special, because again, it's not platitudes and marketing. It really is about a fundamental shift in how we think about every part of our organization.
When you talk about a fundamental shift, that requires conversations that are not typically the norm in other organizations. They probably are at Abode Communities simply based on the catalyst for the organization's founding. But Rick, I remember from our very first workshop with the combined leadership team, you were very candid about your willingness to become comfortable with the discomfort around diversity conversations. And I'm really glad you're here to share your story, because you're not the only one. There are a lot of people that want to be involved in this, but they're a little apprehensive about saying or doing the right or the wrong thing. And you were very clear that, I want to do this, but I'm just not sure how. How have you reframed diversity conversations from difficult to different, and what has that meant for you? What's changed?
So going back to our early conversations that you and I had, Dr. Anita, the difficulty part of it for me came from two factors primarily. One is that, I'm a guarded person in general to begin with. And, this whole journey we were beginning was going to require a lot of vulnerability and being open. And I want to touch on that more in a second. But the other part of it that really made this difficult for me but at the time, was that I am a white male, a privileged white male. And I just kept it made me very nervous that I was going, just going to be coming at this with that privilege, and that, first a part of it was, how am I going to be, how are the others that are in this conversation going to be reacting? No, are they going to be looking at me in that manner? How can, like things like, how can I possibly be relating? And so I had to, begin to initially make my part of part of our conversations, of our journey, such that it was a learning experience for me, and I was starting really from ground zero. I want to say that from every part of me, I believe, and I've always believed in equity and inclusion and justice. It just, those personal traits and characteristics should not define us and limit us. And here was the opportunity for me to push myself and demonstrate that how much it meant to me, I guess, really. How much did it mean to me? Did it mean enough to me that I'm willing to open myself up? And further difficulty was doing it to work colleagues. That's extra, makes it extra nerve-wracking. They're, you have to work with them the other, 39 hours of the week, and I respect them all so much. And I just am thinking, what is this how am I going to look? And so that made it also extra nervous, but I wanted to be an example for the leadership team by being an active, participant. There was, we started off kind of slow. I'm sure we all remember, it had to get some momentum, and I wanted to be part of that. And that's the leadership part that I wanted to demonstrate. And again, if here's this white guy that's willing to do this, then so can I. And that was really what led me to try to overcome all this apprehension that I had. And I mean, so those are the factors that I went through, and where I am now. So the different part of it is that while it's still difficult, it's different because I've begun to understand and have the tools, and it's just elevated my consciousness to it's top of mind all the time for me.
I just am so grateful that you shared that, because a lot of people in the community need to hear that. I have made it a point to, first of all, identify what you just described as leading by unpacking. Leaders are watched all the time. And when leaders are willing to say, I'm vulnerable, I'm a little unsure, but I'm all in because I want to learn and I want to raise my level of consciousness, that makes it safe for everybody else to do it. And when they see the authenticity in your effort, we're all learning this thing together. We're all locking arms and going down this journey of belonging together. The other thing that I want to say is, to the entire community, the voice of white males matters. And I think sometimes in this work, when we're saying we want to be inclusive, we inadvertently exclude the voice of the white male. Now, Rick, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from other white male colleagues that I've spoken to, some of the thoughts or concerns are, does anybody care about my perspective? Does everybody think I'm the problem? Does anybody even want me in the room? If I get excited and decide to lead an effort, are they going to say, there goes the white guy taking over again? And I'm aware of these things because I'm told these things. And so I'm always very careful to say every voice matters. And the perspective of the white male is just as important as the perspective of anybody else around the table. And I know that that was taken to heart by you and the folks on the team, because there were moments where we got vulnerable to the point of tears together. And that made the experiences so much richer.
Me too.
Likewise.
So here we go. This is usually what happened in our sessions. And it's the vulnerability, the authenticity, and the bravery and the courage to be vulnerable and authentic is what we're role modeling for other folks. Jerry, you were co-facilitating some of the sessions with me. What do you want to share?
I mean, that was hard. I remember those times being part of this group and having to process at the same time. But as you know, sometimes the role of the facilitator is to stand outside of the space and hold the space for people. But when you get emotional, when, you know, we would share personal stories about the ways in which we were navigating so much of this stuff in the world and how it showed up at the workplace, right? And those little microaggressions that you didn't feel like were actually adding up, suddenly becoming this huge boulder on your back when you're at the office. Those are real things. And so I think that it profoundly, you know, those are difficult moments, but I think what it gave to me was a gift, because it accelerated my ability to bond with all of my colleagues, because I came on during the pandemic when I didn't have physical contact with these folks.
Holly, I remember one session in particular. I'm not going to divulge anything personal, but I remember one session in particular. You had experienced something with your daughter, and you weren't going to share, and then you shared, and it completely changed the trajectory of the conversation. And people got tighter in that moment. What do you want to share from the perspective of a CEO who doesn't say, okay, this work is good for everybody else, you go ahead and do it, and I'll just kind of hang out in the corner, but you jumped in with both feet with everybody else? What do you say to other CEOs who might be hesitant to actually show up as a person first and the CEO second?
Well, I think you just said it, actually. You all walk in that room as equals. It is not about the pecking order of your organization, because this is about culture setting, in my belief, of your organization. And frankly, I think just listening to Rick right now and Jerry, I think it's safe to say it's about personal culture setting too. And you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth. And, as a leader of an organization, you are one of the folks responsible for upholding that culture. And you can't do that if you aren't authentically part of that process. And I will say, we did have meetings where we had people of varying degrees, levels of authority in the organization. So while there was kind of a pyramid in the room, we very intentionally said, you're leaving your title at the door, because I need to be able to hear equally from, whoever it is across the, room from me, and they need to hear equally from me. And this was really important, and not hear from me as a C-suite person, but hear from me as a human being who sits side by side with them daily doing this work. So I say, it's critical. You cannot do this work without being all in, through all levels of the organization.
I think it's also important to note that some of the sessions were on site where we could actually be in one another's space. Many of the sessions were virtual, and that did not hurt people's willingness to be vulnerable and get emotional and just kind of be raw with each other. And I think that's so important for people to know, that while there's nothing that can supersede being in the same space physically together, it can still be done in a virtual setting. Once you've set the tone that this is a safe space and we're here to take care of each other and learn together. So you all role model that so well for the rest of the team, and the rest of the team they just got with it because they saw your example. So amazing work that we did together. Holly, let's turn to the mission of Abode Communities. Why has Abode Communities chosen to weave racial equity, diversity, and inclusion into the fabric of the organization for over 50 years?
Yeah, so, racial equity, diversity, and inclusion, which I use the acronym READY, so that's how I'll probably describe it in this answer. It's always been organically part of who Abode Communities is. As Jerry mentioned, our roots date back to the civil rights movement, and It was really intentional about giving voice to community to have a say in what was happening in their communities, and they were typically places of Black and Brown residents, right? And so we have this history and legacy of helping people or providing a place for people to have a voice and say in what was happening in their own neighborhoods. And then, I would say over these past 50 plus years, we've really held firmly to a core belief that affordable housing is a basic human right and must be attainable to all. Mm-hmm. And that, that has really driven us to design, develop, operate over, nearly 3,000 service enhanced affordable units throughout California. And we've also known that the decades of housing policies and injustices are really the root cause of so much of the systemic racism that we see in society. Mm-hmm. And so that's driven us somewhat, again, organically to really, focus on doing kind of creating a core belief about our responsibility to lead in advocacy for policies and resources that achieve racial equity and housing justice at the local, state, and national levels. And so we've been, very active over the years on a policy front. However, as Jerry also alluded to, the murder of George Floyd was just, a seminal moment for us. And it really, it was a wake-up call that I don't think we even knew we needed, right? And at that moment, there was a shift in us as an organization from being organically focused on ready, not focused, just organically being, embracing ready, to being far more intentional. And, we've been on this journey ever since and have started developing some guiding principles that are very intentional and specific, such as being deliberate and explicit in the advancement of racial justice, equity, and inclusion, and to share power by actively identifying and promoting opportunities for people of color to influence and impact our decision-making and actions. Fast forward to now, we're celebrating our 55th anniversary this year. And in conjunction with that, we are also launching a new strategic plan that we've been working on for the last handful of months. And this new strategic plan, I'm very excited about. It's going to memorialize our commitment to be intentional and to share power. And specifically, we're building this plan around 3 pillars of people, impact, and equity. And, those words kind of say it all, and there's different definitions for those words. But I think, I know for us, our Ready work is directly defining what those words mean for us and who we're serving and why we're serving them. And we are really building Ready into every component of the strategic plan. So it's not going to be organic. This is going to be really built in. I mean, we'll still be the people we are and, have that organic way about us, but we are going to measure ourselves. We're going to be accountable to what we say we're going to do. And, I'm just really excited about that work. And, I'm hoping that we see lots of great movement and advancement over the next 5 years or so of this next strategic plan.
I have no doubt that you will. And I'm really interested in the Adams Terrace Grand development. How do you see that as a manifestation of your Ready work?
Yeah, so we recently opened Adams Terrace in Los Angeles, and recently also had a wonderful grand opening ceremony. And this is an 84-unit affordable housing development located in Los Angeles in a district that has historically been a Black or Brown neighborhood. And the population we're serving here is seniors, but half the units are also for unhoused seniors. So really directly impacting the homeless population. This development, this is the core work we do, right? We designed it, we developed it, we, are operating it and helping people move in. So it's the physical manifestation of what it means to put people's voice at the center of our work. We conducted all sorts of community outreach meetings and really made sure that people in that community, the Black and Brown people who live there, had a say in how this development was going to look, what the size was going to be, all sorts of parts that they had an opportunity to participate in. Throughout the process of leasing people, marketing and filling up the units, we've been very focused on serving the immediate community and making sure people who already live in that community, even if it means they're living on the sidewalk in that community, but they live in that community, that they have an opportunity to be a resident at this building. We've also recognized that folks coming into our units oftentimes have little or nothing because of the disparities they've experienced all their life. And so these are small little things, but meaningful in terms of giving them welcome packets, making sure they have a blanket and a pillow and, some nice little starter pack of groceries. And so that's leading all the way up to the development coming, being leased up. But now we're in this operation stage. And this is where the real excitement happens, because we now have a building full of people, 84 people. It's actually 2 buildings across the street from one another. So we're stretching our impact in the neighborhood, who are, contributing members to this community. And now they have a beautiful place to call home, a beautiful place that they can go and rest their head each night and know that they belong, going back to this word, and know that they always belonged. And that's something that I'm really learning in this journey myself, is that, we're just instruments coming out there to bring these things online, but that what we're really doing is bringing people back to their home. And it's a really exciting work. And, we're still on a journey. We're still learning. We're still growing. And there's a lot more for us to do. But I know in this particular development, as with so many of our others, we will continue to engage our residents on a regular basis, hear from them, hear what matters to them, make sure we're delivering at our ultimate best so that they have what they deserve in their living situation.
Congratulations on another beautiful milestone.
Thank you.
Rick, you once mentioned that typically the role of the CFO isn't necessarily viewed as being directly related to ready work, but you believe that it is. Tell us more about that.
All of us, my team, we have a lot of stability in the finance team. And I attribute a good deal of that to the fact that we are all very committed to why Abode Communities exists and what it's here to do, and how well we do it. And as Holly said, it was for the first 12 or 13 years of my tenure at Abode Communities, it was just organic and implicit that we were racially inclusive and diverse organization, but it has been much more rewarding in the past couple of years to be able to be this active advocate and participant in this work that we've been doing.
Well, I will tell you that your fingerprints and the fingerprints of your team on those checks are leaving big footprints in the community with those developments. So thank you and your team for everything that you are doing. I have one final question to pose to each of you, and that is this. What is the one takeaway in terms of value that you've experienced over the last 2 years that we've been partnering together? Jerry, let's start with you, and then Rick, and then Holly will have the last word.
Thanks. I think in the last few months, I've been really kind of reflecting as Adams Terrace was leased up, and I was much more present with that lease up, which was belonging, and the work that we're doing ultimately leads to one thing, which is recognizing our shared humanity. And whether that's any of us as a chief executive or the chief financial officer or the chief people officer or a resident living in one of our properties, the thing that we all share with each other ultimately is that we are humans and we go through the human experience, and we love and we experience joy and fear and all the range of human emotions. And if we can remember that on a daily basis, then our service to each other is about feeding ourselves at the same time, because it makes us better humans every day.
I would agree with that. Here. Rick.
I've also been thinking about this, and to pick one is not easy, but here's how I respond to this question, Dr. Anita. So not only, I'm going to squeeze in 1.5, I think, the way I answer this. So not only have I advanced my awareness and understanding and empathy in this entire area around Ready. But I've experienced quite a bit of personal growth in doing this. Being able to realize kind of the things Jerry said, connecting with other humans, and that we're all the same. And so that's made me try to it certainly heightened my awareness that being vulnerable and open to people is actually a good thing, and it's a good way to connect with other people, rather than I looked at it as the opposite prior. And it's turned out that that's 180 degrees incorrect. So that personal growth, I'm going to say, in addition to what we started this journey for specifically.
It sounds like you've drawn the conclusion that I have. When we're vulnerable, we risk either being met with compassion or met with contempt. Either way, it's a learning lesson, and we can be pleasantly surprised.
That's right. And the those that react with contempt are not those that you would want to make a significant part of your life anyway.
There it is. Holly.
Well, I also don't think it's fair to be asked to just answer with one, but I'm going to do my best. And
answer as many as you like. You're the CEO and the guest.
Oh, I know, but I want to be respectful of everybody. I'm going to say ditto to both what Jerry and Rick said. And, in thinking about this question, I did, I have a lot of little things written down, and there's so many valuable lessons that I carry with me to this day in all parts of my life, but I think the one that is overarching for me, and frankly, one that I have to keep, reminding myself of, but use almost daily, including earlier today in a conversation I had with a staff member, is that the goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Yeah. And, I feel like that was a message that was woven throughout every session we had. And I remember one session in particular, we spent a lot of time about reaching for the stars and, reaching the stars. And it's okay that you don't reach them, but you've got to be putting the effort in for that aspiration. And, that has been a really incredible, helpful guidepost for me. And I think it's particularly applicable to work around Ready, because another thing you taught us early on was that there's a lot of ambiguity when you first kick this stuff off. And it's, you want to, maybe jump in and have some tactical things figured out. And you that's not the way to have at this. And, so if you sit back, allow yourself to focus on progress, and know that it's going to be an uncertain road at times, it just really, really helped me quite a bit, and continues to really provide me support to this day.
I'm glad to hear that the things that we learned are ongoing, that the awareness is constantly being raised. Such wonderful insights from all of you. Ms. Holly Benson, President and CEO, Mr. Rick Saperstein, Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Jerry Gonzales, Chief People and Administrative Officer with Abode Communities. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is a very special Real Conversation from the C-Suite, as today I celebrate the founding of Dr. Anita Enterprises 5 years ago. It has been a journey of belonging for me and my clients that I'm looking forward to continuing for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If you'd like to hear this Real Conversation from the C-Suite again, with my guests from Abode Communities, you know where to go, dranita.com. On the landing page in the top in the center, look for the link that says Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. In the meantime, please follow, like, and share. And if anything in this conversation helped you reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different, please share with your network. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.